Zach, you know that meme? The dude sitting at a desk, trade offer, and it says, you receive, I receive. And people put funny stuff in either side. I was thinking about that for this Guardians-Tigers series. So, Guardians receive 3 out of 4. An ability to push some panic into a team that shouldn't be feeling any panic right now. The Detroit Tigers are a great team, regardless of the fact that Cleveland took 3 out of 4 from them. But set some panic in with them that a 4-game sweep could come at their place, and they need to get their ace on the mound to salvage their season. So you get all these positive feelings, and in return, Detroit gets Tarek Skubal doing Tarek Skubal things against a lineup that's just a getaway day at 11:30 in the morning. Who cares? Whatever, you can have that. 3 out of 4, that's what Cleveland wanted the whole time. Everyone going to accept those trade offers? What do you think?
I think so, yeah. But enough about that. We've got breaking news into the Selby's Godcast. Yeah.
Okay,
I just received an email.
No.
This is from Vineet, the founder of Million Podcasts, and we've heard from him before, but it's been a while. He's excited to share that the Selby's Godcast has once again been recognized as one of the top 20 Cleveland Guardians podcasts.
Whoa!
And there's more.
Oh, there is. Okay.
We have been featured in the top 100 MLB podcasts. There's 30 teams out there. I mean, that's...
Okay, hold on. I feel like I'm being a jerk here. No, just stop for a second. I'm being a jerk because it makes me... I feel like I come across as taking it for granted. We don't take it for granted. You said it in one of our most recent shows that we appreciate everyone that's here that has the opportunity to listen to any of those other podcasts out there. And in reality, we do appreciate each and every single one of you for being here, for clicking play, for hitting subscribe down there and liking the videos. We realize you could be doing anything with your time, especially on a Memorial Day weekend, Zach. They could be doing anything right now, and they're choosing to spend time with us. So we do appreciate that. Okay, now be a jerk. Do whatever you want with it.
No, I mean it's very cool. Well, now you just ruined this whole bit by having to be serious and grateful. And
the last time we did it, I think we came across as kind of jerks, which, if the shoe fits, right? But I wanted to come clean and say we do appreciate everyone. So it's an opportunity. That's all I'm viewing it as. It's an opportunity to say thank you. We don't say thank you enough.
My question is, are there 20 Cleveland Guardians podcasts out there?
You know what? If you have one and you also listen to our show, drop down in the comments if you're on YouTube and give us the link to the show so more Guardians fans can have more Guardians content. We talk about that all the time, right? You're not going to get that on the radio, not consistently. So find other places people are going to be talking Guardians. So if we can help inflate the numbers of some other Guardians podcasts that people should be listening to, drop them in the comments right now. Let's be one big happy family. And in return, come join the Patreon too and pay us money. We'll all come out ahead.
Yeah, okay, fine. You turn that into something nice. That's really great.
That's an acceptable trade offer, I think, for everybody. Like this weekend in Detroit. I got to steer us back on course.
Did you like the 11:35 a.m. first pitch?
That was the dumbest thing. I hate it. And this is after I just had a doubleheader with my son over the weekend on Saturday, and their game started at 9, basketball games. Just 9 o'clock for 9-year-olds. This is not smart, and 11:30 for even professionals is a little bit too early to get my blood boiling.
Yeah, especially with the 7:15 first pitch the night before. I think you could reason with it if you had a 4 o'clock start on Saturday, but you didn't. And so it's a quick turnaround, and it's excuses, whatever. I mean, but I'm just imagining, like, also, by the way, the Guardians stay in Birmingham, Michigan. So like they've got a little bit of a trek to downtown Detroit, which was also a mess this weekend with concerts and construction and all this stuff. I just imagine a player getting very limited sleep and like not being able to decompress when they got back to their hotel room Saturday night And then waking up and like half asleep at the ballpark, it's a show and go. Like you're not taking BP or anything. You're like getting to the ballpark, having coffee, having breakfast, taking a quick glance at the scouting report, and then seeing Skubal's. Here's what he does well. And it's just like a list of 87 things. And you're like, what?
It looks
and first
like the
pitches in
Jericho
5
list.
minutes?
Just the scroll rolls out over the floor. Here's the positive scouting report and what you need to keep an eye on. No, it's not an excuse, because even if the game was at 1:30, 2:30, 7:30, it could have taken place on the moon. Tarek Skubal's going to do Tarek Skubal things. He's a great pitcher. I don't want to talk about him briefly, just in terms of where he kind of fits in the upper echelon of pitching, if he is ascended to being the best pitcher on the planet just from afar. And we're going to see him a lot, obviously, being a member of Detroit. But at the same time, this is what made getting those first 3 games so important. Because then everything coming into that game at 11:30, no, I'm not waking up today upset. I would imagine most Guardians fans aren't waking up today upset. Oh, man, Skubal got us. Yeah, he's going to do that to a lot of great teams. It is what made the rest of the series so very important and put the pressure on Detroit, who comes in today 34-20, 630 win percentage, has had, outside of what, the first weekend or first week of, or series of the season when they got swept by the Dodgers, that was really the last time they probably felt any sort of turmoil within. And the Guardians gave them that this weekend. And so that was important to come out, take 3 out of 4, especially with the way this road trip started. Awful. And some of the worst baseball we've seen them play against Cincinnati. To be able to come back, respond in Minnesota with a split, and even the game that they lost, you got to their closer, so there's some positive vibes there. And then you go to Detroit, the team that has established themselves this season as being the best club in the American League to this point, and you took 3 out of 4 and put their backs to the wall so much that they had to rely on the guy that is their Superman to do Superman things. I think that was all a positive and could not have been a better finish to what was starting as an awful, awful trip.
I'm trying to think. Tim Stebbins, Matt Derry, who else? Those are 2 people I know for sure before the series. I said that they were going to take 3 of 4 because this is what the Guardians do, right? You count them out, then they exceed expectations. You get super high on them, and they get swept by the Reds. So like it was a fitting road trip, honestly. Like it was ugly at the start, it was ugly weather-wise in the middle, and then it was beautiful if you're a Guardians fan at the end, and leaves you back in good spirits and has you again designing like how this roster can improve and the team can be in great shape come peak of summer, right? Now, you did face Skubal to end it, and that was like the least surprising shutout of all time. It was so easy to predict that he'd be carrying a perfect game through X number of innings, right? Like it's not even to slam the Guardians. Like he just looked dominant. You had an offense that was probably dragging, and it was the perfect situation. You asked who the best pitcher on the planet is. I don't think it's some crazy proclamation to say that it's Skubal. Like I think that's honestly kind of obvious. Another contender is the guy you're going to see more than 24 hours, less than 48 hours, I guess. The very next day, Monday night, Yamamoto with the Dodgers has been just incredible. Leads the league in limiting hits per 9 innings. So good luck with that. But it's, I think the question for the Tigers, like their starting pitching has been so good. And we saw like Casey Mize looked really good, at least for a while there. I think we've seen Flaherty at his best over the years. I know the Guardians kind of got to him, and he hasn't been quite himself this season. Reese Olson's been good for them. They've got Jackson Jobe, and he's still developing, but he's got a great arm. Like the starting pitching is good. We know what their bullpen is capable of after what it did last year. So like the floor seems pretty high for that team because their pitching is going to be really good. And it obviously doesn't guarantee you anything because I watched the division series last year, but when you do have Skubal and a short playoff series, that's quite the benefit. The question for them is obviously going to be their offense. And I think the big question for me with them is, like, we know the Guardians' path here. Like, you're going to get Fry back, then you're going to get Bieber back, you're going to get Steffen back, you're going to get, DeLauder or Brito or Kafis or whoever. So, like, there are additions coming, and then it's okay, still, what might they need at the trade deadline, and how do they go get that? Like, there's going to be a lot of change with Cleveland's roster. We know that. We've talked about that. I'm really, really curious to know what the Tigers' plan is. Because, oh, by the way, Skubal's got 2 years. He's got this year and next. And then he's a free agent. I'm pretty sure his agent, Scott Boras.
They should probably trade him to make sure they get something out of him. They should probably do that.
But, I mean, there's...
as soon as possible. Really, as soon as possible. Maybe coming off of this start.
I don't know that there's a team that should be in the driver's seat, should be more aggressive than they are at the deadline, just because of... They've gotten off to this great start. They have the pitch. It's like they should be able to go acquire whoever the best bat is on the market in July. But we'll see if they actually do that. You know, like they were in on the Bregman sweepstakes, but, you know, that offer was, it almost felt like an offer just to make an offer. So it'll be curious. Like that's going to be a really interesting team to follow. And can the Guardians, you know, that was obviously a fantastic step. Can they keep pace with them now when you're not just playing them?
I would be surprised if Detroit isn't very active at the deadline, considering they tried to be active in free agency. And you mentioned they struck out some, and they also hit on others. Bringing back Flaherty was key for them, even though Cleveland beat him in this series. What'll be interesting is seeing how Detroit handles being the front runner. You know, you get out to that position. We saw Cleveland do that last year. You race out to the great start, and you try to take advantage of it, because getting that first round bye is massive. To not have to go through a gauntlet of a very, very short series before you even get to the division series, that's a positive. So getting that bye is huge. We spent months talking about that last year for Cleveland. What happens when you get out in front and then you have to sustain it? And clearly, to get into a position like Detroit has been in, everybody that's good has to play good, and sometimes guys have to play above their heads. The question is, how long does that happen? I feel like we're asking a lot of the same questions about Detroit that we were asking about Cleveland last year. Are they going to be able to get the same Javi Baez throughout the whole season? Like, that's been a great story. It's been great for my fantasy squad. But other than that, I don't know if I can bet on him long term. But with that pitching, it's going to keep them in games. And I have the faith that they're going to be a good team through the majority of the season. What I find very interesting is seeing how the dynamic between Cleveland and Detroit kind of feel looking at the two teams. Whereas coming into this series, Cleveland needed to have a strong showing, not necessarily because it was Detroit, but it was because of the road trip having the awful start that it did. So they really needed to right things and at least split the series to come away and not feel like this trip was the worst of the worst. Detroit, it almost felt like they needed to have a good series to prove a statement to themselves or to Cleveland or to the league that no, we are the best team in the American League Central, despite the fact that Cleveland was better than us last year, beat us in the postseason. And it's like you can almost see this with teams that are ascending past another team that had been in a position previously of being either the division champion or league champion or overall baseball champion. I reflected back on the feelings I had when Cleveland was really starting to ascend, like before 2016, where you were sort of using the Tigers and other teams in the division as the measuring stick, and you really wanted to get after them, and you felt like it was a big, important thing every time you played them. And I think that was present for Detroit playing Cleveland, and I don't know that it was present on the other side, that it was like, oh, this is a huge series because we want to prove that what we did in the division series last year was real. I didn't get a sense of that. It was almost a bigger series for Detroit, despite the fact that they are leading the division and have proven themselves to be the best team in the American League to this point.
Yeah, I think for me, I think about the individual performances on Cleveland's side, and I think, because we've spent so much time talking about, well, this guy's been inconsistent, and this guy, you know, we talk about the metrics more than we talk about the real numbers or whatever. But you saw the performances that remind you that there's a lot of talent on the Guardians roster, even if it's imperfect, right? Like, there's a lot of changes that still need to be made. I think there's some dead weight, but like, that was Tanner Bybee at his best, right? And that gives you the validation that, okay, you know, like that's still in there. We know what this guy can be. I thought Luis Ortiz, the way he rebounded after that first inning, was impressive and necessary. If he doesn't do that, it's a split. And we're talking about, okay, it was a fine series, whatever. Like, who's not excited about Slade Ciccone? and what he might have to offer. We talked the other day about Cade Smith and how that performance had us thinking, is there anybody over the last, 20, 30 years who we'd rather have in that sort of situation? Hunter Gaddis with his 2-inning performance that, again, paved the way for a late inning win. You think about the big hits Bo Naylor had and how crucial he is to this lineup. You think about Stephen Kwan tacking on an insurance run in a way that only Stephen Kwan could with a little flair past the shortstop. You think about Jose Ramirez and a slide into home plate and all the ways that he can help you win and the hitting streak he's got going on and how he's been more patient, how he's taken his singles. Like all the elements that remind you why this team could be good were on display. And I think that's the key here is it's still like there are issues, right? Right field remains a black hole and we haven't seen anything out of that. Lane Thomas has not gotten going. Logan Allen looked like a guy who's going to struggle to keep that job all year the way he pitched. And he's been good at times too. I don't want to take that away from him, but it just looked flat. And I think, there's some bullpen spots that will probably change hands over the course of the next month or two. But you still see that talent that like is that foundation for this team. And that has been playing a lot better of late. So I think there's some promise there. You just need to see more, and more than anything, you need to see the help be helpful.
You've been around teams and clubhouses, the same as me, where we've seen almost like the younger brother syndrome. You want to prove to the other guys that you're just as good as they are. And then we've also seen Cleveland be in a position where they are the bigger brother. Looking at this series and you being around the team in Detroit, which sense did you get? Did you sense any of that, like we need to prove to Detroit because they're leading this division? Or did this seem like it's a big series because it is Detroit and it is the division, but not any bigger than any other series?
Yeah, the question was asked to a lot of people both after Game 2 and Game 3. And a little bit after Game 4, honestly, just because you won the series. But, I mean, the answers are all the same. It was like, yeah, like it's nice to come in here and win. It's May. And
right.
Even
but
if
what
they...
about the body language? That's what I'm more thinking about.
I think it's one of those where it's like internally they're like, God, it'd be really nice to win this series. But externally they're just... That's just who they are. That's how they were last year. It's just like quiet confidence, just going about their business, and they're going to say the right polite things and not make things out to be too big of a deal because they expect to win. They did it last year. They won from start to finish until the Yankees beat them. I mean, they were in first place essentially the entire year. So there are expectations there. And there's not going to be like, that's the thing Vogt has drilled into them that you remember when they lost 7 in a row last, what was it, August? And it was like, okay, that's when like the Royals were catching up to them. And it's like, all right, sky's falling. Like this mirage is collapsing here. And Vogt kept getting up there and being like, we're not panicking. I'm not going to like have a team meeting and raise my voice and throw a chair just to put on a show. Like that's not, we've gotten to this point because we have this quiet confidence that we can do this. So I think it's the same mentality where it's like, if they say like, yeah, it's so big to win 3 or 4, like then it's almost like they're surprised or like they're exhaling like, okay, we can coast now. No, you got the Dodgers coming in. So and you got the Yankees next week. Like it's not going to get easier here. So you could walk into that clubhouse on the day they're facing Skubal or the day they're facing a call up for the Rockies named Ethan Zuppe, and like they're going to have the same demeanor, I think.
I only ask because it almost felt like a level of inevitability every single game. And like they're down, there's a feeling of you got to put the Guardians away because they're going to somehow find some way in late innings to hustle their way to a tying run like Jose did. There was almost like it feels weird to say an avalanche effect because this is not the sort of offense that, oh no, they're going to start bombing away. But it's like they just
There is a
little
gently
bit.
used Cavalanche machine available for sale.
I don't know if you want to touch that right now. It was like because Detroit couldn't put Cleveland away, it's just going to keep little bit here, little bit here, little bit here, and then eventually they contact and two-strike their way enough to being able to score some runs and then get in extra innings and then just keep piling on, piling on. We have seen the best and worst of what this offense can be, and we'll continue to say that what they really need to sort of even things out is another middle-of-the-order stick. That hasn't changed based on going 3 out of 4 against Detroit or even when Carlos Santana swings a better bat. We're certainly hoping that he's going to be back in the lineup soon because they don't have a lot of other better options at this point unless you're going down to the minor leagues. They still need that, but when they are at their best, they can be the most annoying and, as I said, inevitable offense because even when they aren't having success, Skubal aside, because he was so dominant and his stuff was so good, you could have been as patient as you wanted. He was still going to get through that with a Maddux. That's how good his stuff. He threw 103 in the 9th inning. You're not touching that. So removing that, you can have good at-bats, you can be patient, and you see the effects of that later in the game start to pile up. And when the offense is at its best, it is capable of doing that. So to me, that's almost what I felt like. A Detroit, oh my God, here they come, looking at the rearview mirror. He's getting closer. And Cleveland just kept kind of doing what they do. And it's tough for me to even verbalize exactly what I mean, but that's kind of what I mean, whereas Detroit was looking at this, it feels like it's a big statement series, and Cleveland just kind of went out and just played their game, and they took 3 out of 4.
It's just a fascinating division. I mean, it's like you got the Guardians and Twins tied 4 games back now, and the Royals are a game behind them. And I think this is just going to fluctuate all year. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if the Tigers kept a little bit of distance between themselves and everybody else, but it also wouldn't surprise me if these 4 teams were just cluttered till the end. And then you look at the whole landscape of the American League, and it's like, yeah, if you win the division, you could very well get a bye. You could be the 1 seed. You could reach the World Series. Like, that's not crazy. And it's, even though I wanted to write off the Twins early, like, it's premature to write off any of these teams for anything. I mean, I don't think the Yankees are invincible. I think they're good. Their run differential is really impressive. They did just throttle the Rockies a little bit over the weekend, but like, there's nobody in the West who's like some juggernaut that you can't beat. Like, this is going to be an entertaining division, and thankfully it's an entertaining division for the right reasons. Like, I think these are 4 teams that can pester pretty much anybody. And what happens then when, obviously, like, health can play a big role in this. I think like the Twins and the Royals don't quite have the depth. Or at least like the Twins, maybe it's a little different. Like, the Royals maybe don't have the depth, and they're being tested right now with that. The Twins maybe have depth, but all their best players are super injury prone. So
especially
then
when the two of the most injury prone guys run into each other.
Yeah. Who could have seen that coming? And then and so then it becomes like, what moves are you going to make? Who can you call up? Like, there's going to be a lot of fascinating things to monitor here. And so then when you get 4 games between any of these teams, it's like, it feels like you're supposed to draw some conclusions. You're supposed to learn something from them.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case, but you can tell yourself it is. Like, if you're the Guardians, you now have that evidence of, oh, well, we can go into Detroit and take 3 or 4, and like, we made it look easy for a couple nights there. And that gives you that confidence, even if it's just a random series in May.
I mean, we joked about it about like a week ago that we're going to look at that series and it's going to be some sort of test and we're all going to draw major conclusions from it. And now coming out of it, taking 3 out of 4 as the Guardians did, I really don't. I don't say that, oh, we learned something massive about this club. I think we just learned that, no, they're capable of playing against some good teams, and when they play their best ball, they can beat them. We also have seen they can be at their worst when guards ball doesn't work, or they don't make the strong enough contact, or they don't whittle enough offense away to be able to come back and storm back late.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really, really up and down lately, right? Like, if you look at, we can go back to the Pittsburgh series. And they went, starting with that Pittsburgh series that was like 5 weeks ago, they went win, 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 win. Lost the finale to the Yankees, won the opener to Boston. Then they went loss, loss, loss. And then they went win, win, win. Lost the opener to Toronto and then took the final two. Lost the opener to the Nationals and took the final two. Won the opener against the Phillies, lost two. Won two against the Brewers. Lost five. Won four. Now they've lost one. Like, it's just been really, we talked about it's been like a roller coaster, and it truly has. And I think that's just a team trying to figure out. I keep saying this, like, I don't know their identity yet. I don't know what their strengths are. I think we're learning that it should be the rotation. You want it to be the rotation, and then the back end of the bullpen. And I think you can fix the front end of the bullpen, and that would give you a really good pitching staff. It would give you the floor that we just said that the Tigers have. So, they just need to. They need the first step, I think, was getting like your best players playing their best, and they're on the path to doing that. And then the next step is going to be, okay, whoever's not performing, there are replacements either ready or on the way to being ready. And you'll start to see that turnover.
Right. I mean, that's a good feeling that it's not a perfect offense, but there are other guys on the horizon, whether it's coming back from injury or in the case of Lane Thomas, still trying to see if he can get his timing back, but he's a better player than he's been so far. And obviously some minor leaguers that we've talked a lot about that are either on the mend or are just thrashing away at AAA. So there are other alternatives here as the season unfolds, that if Nolan Jones just keeps doing this, you're going to go to somebody else eventually. You know, Carlos Santana has to keep it up, or he's going to lose playing time later in the year. May not happen today, but certainly later in the year, there are going to be cases for that. But as I look at the American League Central, the funny thing is, the records are all really good, and they're some of the best teams in the American League. But in the past, the knock was always, but you can beat up on bad teams when the schedule was what it was. And sure, I mean, you can take advantage of when you play the White Sox, but what about the teams in the East that get to take advantage of when they play the Baltimore Orioles, who are jockeying with the White Sox for being the just absolute worst of the worst in the American League? That's just rough.
That's shocking to me. And it's not, like, their offseason didn't make sense to me, and some of their trades last season didn't make sense to me. And everyone's known they've needed pitching. They didn't replace Corbin Burns, really, but their offense, they haven't hit either. I mean, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe how bad they are. Anyway, the Rockies are 9-44, so with a run differential of minus 171.
I mean, even bringing back Corbin Burns, that doesn't magically flip the record or anything like that, even though that was a big gaping hole that they left in that team. And this is not to talk about, this is not the Orioles or Godcast, because they certainly aren't this season. But what I am saying
is... Do you think we could be a top 20 Baltimore Orioles podcast?
That's, I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with their game. I look at the Tigers. They've established themselves as one of the best teams, if not the best team in the American League so far this year. And the Yankees are up there to challenge them, but I think the Tigers could play with the Yankees at this point. And like, the Guardians certainly can hang with anybody else, like Rays, Red Sox. I would think so. Mariners, Astros, Rangers, sure. But what about the Twins? I think it's the same thing with the Twins. I think they can hang with all the other teams, like the Rays and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, certainly. Or as we were saying with the Mariners, Astros, Rangers. And even the Royals, I think, are on par with like the teams that I just mentioned here. This is not a case where it's an overinflated win total. No, I think all of these teams, all four of them, are just as good as, maybe not the Yankees, but they're just as good as that just a little bit below tier of every other team in the American League. And in the playoffs, certainly anybody could take down anybody in a short series. So my point here is to give the American League Central some credit. Yes, their records are inflated, but I think they're inflated because all these teams are actually equally as good, if not better, than the other teams that are in equal positions in their divisions.
I think we all figured the Dodgers and the Phillies and the Mets and the Cubs would be really good. Could throw the Padres in there. And the National League, I think, has haves and have-nots. There's a little bit of middle ground with like the Reds, Brewers. But the American League, I mean, it looked like this from spring training. I thought that you think you could eliminate like the White Sox and the Athletics, and I figured the Angels, even they've hung around kind of. But everybody else is, I know the Orioles, that hasn't transpired, but everybody else is just going to be like in this for better or worse. That's going to also make the trade deadline maybe a little more complicated to go make the upgrades you want. Who's going to commit to selling? You know, are the Blue Jays? The Blue Jays are a confusing team. They've got a losing record right now. They just locked up Guerrero for 55 years or whatever it was. And then do they just turn around and do they sell at the deadline? Like that seems weird, but maybe. I just, it's going to be fun. You know, there's a lot of, like, one hot week and you can go from middle of the pack to American League Titan.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of that when everyone's so closely clustered together. Speaking of the Blue Jays and dishing out money, did you see that scathing column about Andres Jimenez, and they're paying him that contract, and they're saying he's a glove only, maybe some speed second baseman.
I read it more as a pro Ernie Clement column than an anti Andres Jimenez column.
You can read that however you want, and certainly I actually wish the best for him, and he's a better player than even this. So I think it's probably unfair to just look at him in this moment and say they got to pay him that much money. Any case, it feels like the Guardians may have dodged a bullet there. But taking 3 out of 4 from Detroit makes sure you don't feel like you're locked out of the top of the American League Central Division. But speaking of being locked out, I saw a lot of activity from our Selby's Godcast Twitter account over the weekend, more than we typically do. It's usually just tweeting out articles or maybe occasionally a funny meme, but then all of a sudden I saw news and promotion and interactions. And now I'm getting double the notifications because some other person logged in and turned on notifications for other things in there. Yeah. So now I'm seeing activity on the Selby's Godcast Twitter account. What happened here? What's going on?
I can't get into my Twitter. Something with 2-factor authentication, but I can't authenticate. Or I authenticated, but I can't get into the authentication. And I reached out to tech support, and I expect to hear back from them never. I mean, the funny thing is, like, I've been on this Nic Enright story for 15 months, right? We ran a big feature on him 2.5 weeks ago now, and I think the point was I had so much material. I mean, I was reporting this forever and talked to him and his family so many times that we were never going to fit that all into one story. So the first feature ran and it was decently long and I had all this leftover material. And the point was when he debuts, wherever he is, I'll make sure I'm there. There were some close calls in the last couple of weeks that I thought, particular trip I'm not on, I might have to make a last minute trek across the country or something. But when he debuts, I had plenty of material for a second story, maybe through the eyes of his family watching him pitch after this emotional journey the last few years for him. And so I had a plan of all these things I wanted to post and how I wanted to do it. And of course, find out he's getting called up and I can't do anything with that information. So it's been a struggle. I mean, you realize like how much, you have, I don't know, 30 seconds to kill while you're waiting for your car at the hotel or something. And it's like, oh, I would always just pull up Twitter on my phone in these 30 seconds and just see what's happening. I feel like I don't know what's going on in the world, which might be a good thing. I feel like I definitely don't know what's going on in sports. I don't know when news is breaking. It's weird. I feel naked, and I do think in the long run, like maybe this is healthy. But I also like to promote work I'm proud of, and only that. I mean, I don't tweet very much. It's basically just a Jose Ramirez helmet counter account now, but it's very strange.
Might have to make Zack Meisel too.
Well, that's why we have the Selby this Godcast account.
Yeah, maybe this in the long term helps promote that. People have to follow that if they want to get the helmet counter. Until, what do you think? What happens first? Tarek Skubal's no longer a member of the Tigers, or you get that Twitter account back?
I'm sure Elon Musk has nothing better to do, right, than fix my
Have you tried sending him a message? Have you
How?
Off of the Selby account?
No.
Hey, this is very important. Although I do find it's a little bit ironic that, and both of us have drifted into never tweet territory. I'm much more willing to engage with our friends in our Discord, which you can find by joining the Patreon, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast. In addition to getting that extra episode per week, get access to the Discord and have some fun in there with our friends. I'd much more likely to go in there and put up some thoughts or a joke or whatever. I feel like I'm talking amongst friends as opposed to what X is. But it is ironic that you try as much as you can to never tweet, and then you need it. You need it, and there it's not there for you.
That's life.
Look at, I think this might have been a plan executed by X.com. The treat to keep you when you needed it most. Oh, you're not going to tweet from us? That's fine. Then you're not going to be able to when you actually want to.
Yeah. I launched a Blue Sky account. I don't know if people actually use that. I might start a Tumblr.
Maybe you can just start putting your updates on like LinkedIn.
Catch me on Zanga.
Bring back MySpace. How much fun would we have with the Selby is Godcast MySpace account?
Well, what if we could have a Guardians top 8?
Yeah.
Who's in your top 8?
Are we talking actual members of the Guardians?
Yeah, like who's playing well?
Oh, okay.
Well, it would be 7, and then we'd have to keep Tom. Wasn't that the guy's name from MySpace?
Yeah. Maybe the honorary long reliever. Yeah, we'd go Jose 1, right? Jose 1. I think we go Quan 2. Then what do you think? 3 was always, you always put your two best friends 1 and 2, but 3 was always whoever was making their play to be in the top 1 or 2. But that would always rotate. 3
like someone
and 4,
who had potential.
Yeah, like you kind of need to prove why you should be in the top 2. So who is that for the Guardians here?
Like someone that's like, I really like this guy. I hope I get invited to go over his house after school next week.
Yeah.
Maybe if I put him 3rd.
Yeah. Like, to me, I think you put Bybee 4, because he's 30. He's going to stay at 4.
Saccone 3?
Maybe you try to utilize that 3 spot to justify getting a little bit more out of the friendship, or in this case, more out of the player. So who goes in that 3 spot for you?
Slade Saccone.
Slade Saccone? Okay. And then round things out with, does Carlos get a spot just because of the longevity? I mean, he's been your friend forever.
Yeah, but see, I'm thinking of it like, I know Santana so well. If I don't include him in the top 8, he's not going to be bothered by it.
Oof. I don't know. That kind of
at his age, is he still worried about friends lists?
I think yeah, maybe that's true. I think you put him in the 7 spot because it's not. You save the 8 spot for someone that's just thankful to be in the top 8.
I see what you're doing here.
You're someone that's really
Santana
thankful.
shouldn't be 4 or 5. He should be 7 or 8.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say Santana 8. How many people do you think we've lost? How many people have dropped off?
Well, that's the other thing is, do our listeners even know what MySpace was?
Oh, I think they do. I think they're familiar. If they weren't even able to use it, they've heard about it now.
I've shared with you, right? I didn't have a MySpace under my name. My name was LeBron James, and my picture was LeBron James.
Yeah. Yep. That's how you learn how to talk to girls, right?
Maybe I need a Twitter account where my name's LeBron James.
Yeah, let's think about that. Okay, from some silliness to actually some seriousness, and something that was super cool. You mentioned Enright, that debut, getting the call up this weekend of all weekends, and then what does he do to the first guy that he faces? Could not script this better. Did you write this? Did you act? Were you like a guest producer on this spot?
I mean, I it's insane. Like I remember the first time I ever talked to him, spring training of 2024, and like there wasn't a ton out there about his journey. But there was a little bit, and I certainly remember him being in the org, being taken by the Marlins in the Rule 5 draft, and then a couple months later, him and the Marlins together announcing what he had been diagnosed with. And I mean, I'm certainly not going to just retell 15 months of reporting here. Like, I've got 2 features on him. Go read those on The Athletic if you want. But
I'll drop them in the description for the episode.
How this has all played out has been mind-blowing. And that's to someone who has had not a front row seat, but like a lower box level seat to this. Like, this is not how this normally goes in terms of like everything coming together. And it's cool. Like I'm struggling to like stay objective with this one because like I know what they've been through. I know that first time talking to him, he was so willing to share his story. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, you love when someone trusts you without even knowing who you are, really, to tell your story. And then I was talking to his parents, I remember, and to his wife, and they're all like, yeah, he hasn't shared this before. He didn't want to initially, he didn't want to be labeled as like that pitcher with cancer. And I remember when he got to Marlins spring training, he was struggling. He didn't want to tell anybody because he didn't want to be like, hey, you're all my new teammates, and I got to go around to 60 different people and be like, hi, I'm Nick. I'm a reliever here. I was taken in the Rule 5 draft. Oh, and I'm, I just finished a round of treatments for Hodgkin lymphoma. Like, it's been a lot. And just thinking about all the times where, like, he's a reliever, right? And he went to college and there was a COVID season and like development wasn't, he wasn't in the major leagues at 23. And so he had to make decisions based on like, I'm a reliever closer to 30 than 20. And I've got a limited window to earn a major league salary. I've got a limited window to get to the majors and stick. And if I take 2 years off to just go through my treatments and focus only on my health, I come back at 29, 30 years old. Like, is a team going to want me? What's my path to the majors going to be at that point? Will I even be able to throw hard? And so his decision was, and the doctors backed it. And they said like, there's not really a playbook for this. But they understood like, this is your time to try to cash in on your situation. I mean, you were a Rule 5 pick. Like you're in the doorstep to the majors. It could be now or never. And so he's undergoing these treatments that like just sap him of all of his energy. And really it should take months to recover, but he didn't have that time. So obviously he didn't make the Marlins roster out of spring training in 23. He's like throwing on backfields at their spring training complex and he's got nothing. I mean, he's throwing, instead of 92, he's throwing 86 and it's just taking everything out of him. And eventually the Marlins send him back to the Guardians. And I think that was a blessing in disguise because even though that meant he wasn't as close to the majors as he could have been, he was in a comfortable surrounding and everybody knew him and he could work with people he knew and it took a little pressure off. And so, he's still going through everything. He gets married December 2023. Goes through treatments again. 2024, I mean, look at his numbers. His ERA last season was like 1. Strikeout rate incredible. Walk rate really good. But he had a shoulder injury. And so they had conversations at various points like, should we call him up? But the injury kind of wiped that out. Goes on his honeymoon in November, like the day after another round of treatments. He's recovering. He's got no energy. He feels terrible, but he's lying on a beach in Granada. And the last day of the honeymoon, he gets a call that they're adding him to the 40-man roster. And that was like, okay, here we are again, like on the doorstep of the majors again. Goes through his treatments over the offseason. Finally this year, he had a lat injury in spring training, which he basically laughed off because it's like, everything I've been through, like, this is nothing. But he'll have a checkup at the All-Star break, another round of treatments after the season, and he hopes that that's it. But as this is all going on, like, finally he's here. How many times has he been so close and think he's going to get the call? It's human nature. Like, anytime the team runs out of relievers or has a doubleheader and needs a 27th guy, like, he's been a name that's been discussed. I mean, I know from my perspective, like, I really thought he was going to get called up for the doubleheader in DC, and I had to dig to figure out what the answer was because I needed to know if I needed to wake up at 4 a.m. and drive there. But I think just how this all happened then this weekend, after everything I just laid out, Friday night, he's in Columbus. Just so happens to be a weekend where his parents are visiting from Virginia. So they're in attendance. His wife's in attendance. It's a close game. He gets up, starts throwing some weighted balls in like the 7th inning, and one of the coaches comes over and is like, I wouldn't do that. I don't think you're going to get in tonight. He's like, it's kind of strange. It was like 5-5 or something. Like, Franco Alamon went 2 innings, and Enright's probably sitting there like, hello? Like, I can go tonight. I'm good. Family's here. Would love to show them what I've got. So after the game, he learns from Andy Tracy he's going to get the call. So he texts his family and he says, hey, instead of where you normally meet me over here by like where I exit the clubhouse. And they're all like, well, that's got to mean something. But his wife, Erin, like, she's paying attention and she's like, the Guardians aren't sending anyone down. They just got a great start from Tanner Bybee. They got a great start from Slade Ciccone. Like, the bullpen's in good shape. What's going on here? Which is where we should obviously say Hunter Gaddis, condolences. His grandmother passed. So Nick comes out of the clubhouse, wide smile, tells them like, hey, you guys want to go to Detroit? They all cry. And it's there have been a lot of tears shed for the last 2.5 years. And these were, finally some happy tears that they've all envisioned this day, this moment. So they get to drive up the next morning, Saturday morning. Don't think it dawned on them. It didn't dawn on the organization that, oh, by the way, the Tigers are hosting Strikeout Cancer Weekend. Just a coincidence, but Enright got number 59 that was given to him. That's Carlos Carrasco's old number. Carrasco gave him some advice a couple years ago that like changed Enright's outlook on this whole thing. Like, it is all so poetic. Spent some time with his family Saturday night. He didn't get in the game, obviously, but they're in heaven. I mean, like, they can't believe this. Like, they're so grateful. And then, like, I think everyone kind of figured he'd pitch Sunday, especially once they went down. And he told them, text me where you're sitting, but I'm not going to look up at you until my outing is over because I don't want to lose it. And he jogs out. And, like, you can imagine the adrenaline, the emotion flowing through him. I've waited for this moment forever. I've gotten so close. Finally, it's happening. Oh, and then it's God Bless America time. So can you pause and stand here for 60 seconds and face the flag? And we need to check you for substances too. And but he said that gave him a minute to like reflect on his journey and kind of catch his breath so that by the time he got to the mound, it was all baseball. And as you said, TJ, like, strikes out Riley Green. He's hitting 95, I think, on that fastball. He's also done velocity training the last couple of years. So he's got that stuff back. The slider looked good, and 2 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts. He's scoreless 7th, scoreless 8th. When he finishes the scoreless 8th, he's walking back toward the dugout, and finally you see him look up at his parents. And like you could tell that it struck him. He pounded his glove with his fist a couple times, gets back to the dugout, and he really had to take a minute at that point. It was cool watching his parents too when his dad was super antsy, fidgeting in his seat. His mom's recording everything on her phone. He finishes the 7th inning. I think Lane Thomas hauled in the last out, and you could see the exhale from his parents. They stood up, they hugged, and it's like. It's on one hand, it's like, what a perfect moment, what a perfect like culmination this weekend was. And on the other hand, What a relief. You can exhale, like he made it, he's here. Finally, you don't have to keep wondering, when is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? And just, yeah, I mean, it's truly like, how can you not be romantic about baseball? Poetic, all that stuff. It was perfect.
The incredible thing, it's just really the start. It's the start. I mean, it feels like a finish line, I'm sure, to get to this point, but this is, for him, what I'm imagining he's thinking of, this is the beginning of his major league journey. And this is not, it's not just a great story, but this is a great story for someone who is probably going to help this team.
Yeah.
And really, roster Olympics aside, he might go up and down, and you just expect that from anybody in a similar position. But you got to this point, and it's not just like that you accomplished getting here, it's that you envision staying here and making all that hard work so very worth it, to not only get to that position and have your moment like that, but then to have a full career after that. That's what's incredible. It's not just about being good enough to get back to what you do, but then putting it so far in the past that it almost becomes a side note, that it's not the thing that defines you. And I'm sure, like when you were talking about with him going over to Miami, not wanting to let that be that's the guy with cancer, and that's the one defining thing. He wants to get to a point where he's the guy with incredible stuff that you want in the 7th and 8th inning. Oh, no, yeah, did you know that this guy once had cancer? But he's phenomenal. Getting to be a point where his definition of himself goes beyond just what he had to overcome to get here.
I can't stress enough how incredible of an attitude he's had throughout this. And that's not to say there weren't dark days at the beginning.
Sure.
He's sitting in a hospital bed waiting for like the official diagnosis, and he's looking down. He's got a tube connecting this spot to his neck, to this, to that. And he's like, am I ever going to pitch again? Like, I don't, this isn't. And he felt completely normal. He felt great going into this. That's the other thing. It was kind of a freak thing. But the attitude's been unbelievable. Like the willingness to share his story now, once he realized he could actually affect people, inspire people. And I don't read the comments, but I was sitting bored at Slo's Barbecue and had run out of money on my DraftKings casino app. And I pulled up, I wrote another feature on Sunday after he pitched. And when I think the first comment I saw just kind of like knocked me down. And this is why he has chosen the path he's chosen. The comment from Mark M said, I was just thinking about my crappy day before I read this. Turns out the day is just a day. All of us who are cancer survivors revel in your successes. And like, it's that. He was inspired. Mel Stottlemyre Jr. was his coach in Miami, and he had been through his own things. And like, he took a little bit from Mel. He took a little bit from Carlos Carrasco. He took a little bit from James Conner, the running back who had been through lymphoma in college. He took a little bit from Anthony Rizzo. And like, he even said it. We talked often throughout the 15 months, and I'm excited now to just talk baseball and pitching, which will be nice too. But there were points where I said, like, does your story have to end in the big leagues? Like, there's no guarantee you get there. And it's a painful question to ask, but like, what happens if you don't? And he said, obviously, like, that's the goal, and that's why you do what you do, and that's why he's thrown a baseball since he was, 5 years old in his backyard. But he realized, the perspective he gained through all of this, where he's like, it would mean so much just to like be able to inspire someone or help someone the way I've had others do for me. Like, that's the first objective at this point. That's what I'm focused on now. And obviously, if you get to the majors, you have a bigger platform, you have more of an opportunity to showcase what you've been through and how you've persevered, and it'll exponentially help you motivate or inspire others. But I think that's only going to help him, like the perspective he's gained, and how, he got to the mound yesterday and he's like, oh yeah, let's see. It's still 60 feet, 6 inches. All of these hitters I'm going to face, I faced in the minor leagues when they were with the Erie Seawolves or whoever else. And like I've got adrenaline, I've got my fastball, I've got my good stuff. Like I don't need to be thinking about like, oh no, what if I get sent down, and what if I never make it back, and what if my treatments leave me weak? No, like I'm here, and let's pitch. Let's show what I can do.
I love that, of the idea of people going through it, helping someone currently going through it, and then you get to be in that position in the future. Just being able to then help the next person and letting this just be a cycle of great things, of people helping people get through something that's just absolutely awful. So thank you for that. Love the story, love that insight here, and just thinking about his parents and being able to watch them, and thinking about it myself, and being a parent too. And I'm sure for you, when you have kids, that perspective kind of change makes me a little bit emotional. So that was great story, awesome moment, could not have been any better.
They had, so where Nick and Aaron live is a couple hours away from where he was getting his treatments at the University of Virginia Cancer Center. And so it was perfect irony that all the times they've had to make these 2.5 or so hour drives for terrible reasons, and those car rides are silent and they're painful, and his dad's sitting there trying to just break the ice and say, who should our Packers draft? Should we get a cornerback or something? And Nick's not listening to that. He's staring out the window like, I can't believe I have to go for another one of these that's going to leave me wrecked and push me farther away from the major leagues. And here they are again in Columbus, Saturday morning, packing the car, go take another 2.5, 3 hour drive. And this one will be the best one you ever have. It was perfect.
That was great. Well, we'll shift gears here as we close out the show. This one came from a request from one of our friends, Matt, in the Discord, who wanted to get some love and respect on the podcast for Ben Lively. I'll just read the comment here, because I think he said it as good as you can. If we don't see him in a Cleveland uniform again, I think he goes down as one of the most underrated pitchers for us in the past few years. Signed as a free agent for a league minimum and was arguably one of, if not the most dependable, reliable pitcher we had the last year, other than the back end of the bullpen. I don't think we'd have gotten as far as we did last year without him. And really, truly, I know he flies under the radar because he doesn't have the great stuff, and we spent time talking about how fun it is to watch a guy like that who doesn't have fantastic stuff but still manages to get results with guts and grit and anything else. 15 wins in his Cleveland career, a 3.68 ERA over what we would think of in the past as being like a 200-inning season, 195 and 2/3 innings of 3.68 ERA for a guy they signed as an afterthought for most of us included on this show, league minimum, and you got that out of him. And certainly you hope that's not the end of his career. I know he's late in his career, have to have the surgery that's going to take him off the map for a year and a half, whatever the case may be. But yeah, definitely props owed to Ben Lively, because he was sort of taken for granted, and we're always looking for the next big guy with big stuff to lead this rotation, but sure makes it a lot easier when you have that guy in the middle of the rotation that you can just hand the ball to. He's going to probably give up 2 runs and 5 1/3, 5 2/3, maybe 6 innings, and he's going to be there for the next start too.
I'm guilty of it. I thought this guy throws 89, 90. He's been a journeyman pitcher his whole career. He had a 5.05 ERA when he got to Cleveland. He spent 3 seasons in Korea. I underestimated him. I didn't give him the credit he deserved. He signed a league minimum deal and thought, probably be a swingman, maybe a spot starter. Then remember, he was sick in spring training. And it's like, okay, well, this guy will just fit in somewhere. And no, he's going to fit into the rotation and be your second most trusted entity there. This stat blew me away. I did not look it up thinking I'd find anything usable, but I looked up because he made 38 starts. So I looked up all the American League pitchers who made 38 starts since the start of last season. Do you know where he ranks in terms of ERA? 15th.
What?
There were only 14 pitchers with a better ERA than him who basically started on turn. One of those is Tanner Bybee. So that blew me away. Like the guy deserves his flowers. You're right. And I think it is just the fact that like he doesn't have flashy stuff and he doesn't have the track record. Mm-hmm. But the guy's got guts. And I hate leaning on cliches and stupid stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, that guy had the will to win, but he did. Like, I don't know how to explain it other than that. I think he had good command. And I think he was fearless, man. We've talked about it, like how Bybee can't start on opening day. So they call Ben Lively, who's just keeping loose in Arizona. And he's like, all right, cool. See you tomorrow. Like, he gets matched up against an ace then, like 4 of his first 5 or 5 of his first 6 starts. He's like, whatever. Okay. That's who's over there? Dylan Cease. Fine. Whatever. Cole Reagans. Whatever. Like, he's undaunted. I think a lot of that is his experiences in his career. I mean, he had some rocky times. He'll admit he was a hothead, an emotional young pitcher who would have a bad inning, go back to the dugout, punch a wall, and, pay for it. And I think age and maturity and, going to Korea for 3 seasons, I think that all helped. And then the Guardians certainly identified some things they liked that they could squeeze more out of. And it was a perfect marriage. And yeah, I mean, he was the kind of guy you want on your side. Like, I think that attitude is really healthy for a clubhouse. Just kind of what we talked about early in the season. Remember, like, that quiet confidence. Like, the Guardians don't look, I mean, especially to like the outsiders, the national media, like, they don't look like a team that's like going to wreck the league, right? Lively doesn't look like a pitcher who's going to have a 3.68 ERA over a season and a quarter. But they have that quiet confidence about them. And it works. And they know it's going to work.
I can't imagine building an entire career just on guts and grit and anger and channeling that into your performance. So I don't think that's all. Like, we're not giving enough credit to Ben Lively, the pitcher, to just say that that's it. Mm-hmm. But that is certainly what pushed him over the finish line to, at this point in his career, be able to be the guy that was putting up the 3.68 ERA and 195 and 2/3 innings for Cleveland. Very impressive, deserves the flowers, as you said, and it's unfortunate because the next time we see him, he'll probably be entering his age 35 season. I don't know what the rest of a career would look like for him coming back off of this surgery. If they can find some way to keep him around, I would certainly be in favor of that. But we'll see.
I hope this was a top 20 performance the last hour.
Kind of wavered in the middle, I feel like. That's my fault. Anytime we waver, just blame it on me. But if you want to reach out to Zack and tell him whether or not you thought this was a good show, just tweet at him, @SelbyIsGodcast. That's the only way he's going to see it.
Yeah, I'll get back to you in like 2046.
So if you need the helmet counter, @SelbyIsGodcast. That's where you're going to find it. But thank you for being here. Thank you for clicking play, hitting subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, right here on YouTube. And find us later this week at Patreon, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast. Bye.